Hello and welcome to Tuesday's edition of The Brief. I'm Gerard, Ratnam. We've got a great show lined up for you with lots of updates. As usual, we'll be speaking to Nordin Abdullah shortly about what's going on with regards to International Women's Day. Also, markets are down everywhere within our vicinity. We're going to be taking a look a little bit at that and how do you manage markets in times of uncertainty. We'll delve into that shortly. And in conjunction with IWD, or International Women's Day, we'll be speaking to HEIDY. She's the founder of Refuge for the Refugees. And we'll be talking to her about women and how far they've come, especially when you talk about migrants and also refugees. Where are they now? There's been so much of help out there. In the past 10 years, how far have we moved forward? But we begin with updates from this morning's Parliament session. And according to the Housing and Local Government Minister, 50% of One Malaysia Housing Program or PRIMA projects nationwide are young people aged 25 to 35. Now, this initiative is apparently meant to increase PRIMA home ownership among the younger generation. Still with Parliament, Dewan Rakyat was told today only 4 Malaysians are currently stuck in Ukraine, and they are registered with the Malaysian embassy in Kiev. So we have a pulse on what's happening there. Now, according to our foreign minister, the embassy, through Malaysian representatives in countries near Ukraine, especially countries like Poland, have maintained close contact with the 4 Malaysians within Ukraine. Now, a quick update on what's happening with regards to vaccines and adolescents, or rather the program for adolescents. Yesterday, 29.3% of children between 5 to 11 received their first booster under the PIC Kids. And for adolescents aged 12 to 17, 91% of the population have already been fully vaccinated, while 94.2% have received at least one dose. So that's good news there. Now we move on to Johor. UMNO's Supreme Council member, Dato Zahid Zainul Abidin, says the question as to who went out there and helped Felda should not be played as an issue within the upcoming state elections this weekend. This was as all parties, in particular Barisan Nasional, played some role in assisting Felda folk ever since it was formed. Now, in conjunction with this year's Women's Day celebration, or IWD, 15 female climbers have embarked on an expedition to conquer the Everest Base Camp. Now, the expedition, dubbed Everest Base Camp Mountaineering de Femina, was flagged off by the Women, Family and Community Development Minister. So that's a little something that we're looking forward to hear about very, very soon. Now, speaking of which, every day we're joined by our crisis management guy. I'm now joined by Nordin Abdullah, who comes in on a daily basis to walk us through what's happening in the world, in the news world, and also to give us a sense of what's happening with regards to crisis management as we are unfolding from one crisis to the other, trying to manage it as best we know how as we move forward. Nordin, thanks very much for doing this. Now, this year's IWD theme is Break the Bias, Celebrate Women's Achievement, Raise Awareness Against Bias, Take Action for Equality. Now, Farida Hamid, she joined us yesterday, Nordin, and she had a lot to say about the theme in and of itself. So we're going to try to play that clip. You listen to this and give us your comments on what Farida had to say yesterday as a preamble to International Women's Day. Can we play the clip, please?
I would most like to see broken is to see the very institution that's telling us to break the bias to start with itself, which is the United Nations. They, in a 77-year history, have never had a female Secretary General. And even though they claim to have diversity, a lot of data has come out that they actually don't practice it. For example, most senior jobs go disproportionately to Westerners, and that includes white women. And at the headquarters in New York, 90% of the employees in some divisions are overwhelmingly Westerners.
Well, that was what Farida had to say yesterday as a preamble to International Women's Day. And, when you look at it, there is some truth there. But no, what are your thoughts surrounding what Farida had to say?
Well, Gerard, I always like to look at everything on a continuum and where we are and where we need to be, but also where we started. So if in the last 5 to 10 years, the UN has made moves to get it right, I think that's important, that we should celebrate the hard work that they're doing. At the same time, I think the fact that Brita has called out these gaps and found these gaps, and this is what I love about, data. You get a data set that is incredibly powerful, then you can use it to make change. So with that data set, I hope that the United Nations and all its agencies continue to go down the path of gender equality and of course racial equality is another big step that we need to get right. So it's definitely an issue. It's definitely we're definitely in a process of getting it right. So it's for me, and this is one thing I always like when I speak with you, Gerard. You always talk about tell me what the solution is. And for me, the solution often comes down to, yes, we've got the awareness part. Now we need to empower women to get to where they need to be in those organizations. So are there inner biases in biases in those organizations, and are there policies in that organization to address them? Or is there a gap in the policy gap? And that would be the first place I would look to see change.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to bring this downwards to where we are and look at a national level, now in boardrooms across the country, what kind of conversations should be taking place? Looking at this year's theme and wanting to push the envelope a little bit more in order to give women a better say or better opportunities within boardrooms and also within any industry in Malaysia. Also, we were talking about the IT industry, but yeah, we'll talk about that later. But what conversations should we be having at this point?
One of the things, Gerard, that when we deal with crisis management, we talk about resilience and building resilient organizations. So part of that resilience is diversity. And when we boil down every crisis that we deal with, it always comes back to ESG. And a component of that is the societal component. So women play an important part in that and an important part in the diversity component. Why do you want women in boardrooms is an important question that you have to ask. Why do we want women in decision-making places? Because they're able to bring a diversity of solution, a diversity of coming up with innovative ideas that if it's left up only to men, you may or may not get the best answer. So diversity from a male-female perspective, diversity from a racial perspective, this is going to be about designing innovative futures. And that is part of why we need to get this right, not just understanding it from a pure data perspective. It's actually the only way forward in terms of sustainability.
Right. A lot of people ask me, and I'm just digressing a little bit to just give some perspective here as to where we are. I grew up with 5 women. I've got 5 sisters. I'm the only rose among the thorns, and I've never regretted a day growing up with 5 girls. I've learned everything I know until where I am today from all my sisters, and I like to take this opportunity to wish all of them and to tell them that I love them very much. Having said that, women are doing well here in Malaysia. Apparently, according to a new study, Malaysia continues to see an increasing number of new women. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm just reading out. Yeah, an increasing number of women investors in the stock market, and they represent 36% of new central depository system accounts open year to date. That's from, for those of us who don't know what year to date is, from January 1 until now, this point today. Your thoughts?
Well, Gerard, again, you've got a wonderful data set. Now we can have a meaningful discussion around economic empowerment for women and the fact that they're getting to the point where they're able to open these accounts, where they're able to participate in the economic future of the country, economic future of their families. This is, I think, a very good sign for Malaysia. There are some countries, of course, in the world you can't open a bank account without a man's permission. And that still shows that Malaysia is nowhere near that. We're actually much further down the road to parity and getting women on equal footing. having said that, in Malaysia, you know that women play a very important role. Whether it's in the family or in the corporate sector. And I always like to look at what's going on in the education sector as a bellwether for what the future holds. So I think we're on the right path here.
Right. I don't mean to burst your bubble, but I've got a woman working in the background. She's my lead producer, and she's telling me 2 minutes to go before we hit the business brief.
She's our boss. We got to do what she tells us.
Yeah. So our markets are down. Our markets are down today. Everything looks like it's really spiraling downward. Your thoughts on uncertainty or market uncertainty at times like this?
Well, Gerard, we're looking at possibly we're looking at COVID-19 as the crisis that defined the generation. I think the Ukraine-Russian crisis could be, has already surpassed that in terms of uncertainty. Whenever we see uncertainty, business people, investors, thrive on certainty. Whenever you see uncertainty, you'll see money come out of the stock market and move into perhaps commodities. And I think gold is doing much better this morning, as is, of course, the oil price is shooting through the roof. So volatility will continue as long as that conflict continues. So we need to be prepared and start to design responses at a corporate level as well as a national level for that crisis.
Right. Thank you very much, Noordin Abdullah. Always good to hear from you. We'll check in with him once again tomorrow to find out more in the crisis brief with Noordin Abdullah. In the meantime, let's take a look at what's happening in the business world. The ringgit continued to trade lower against US dollar in the early trading session today. Persistent buying support from the greenback. Of course, $1 now is currently 4 ringgit 18 cent. And at Bursa, as at 12:30 p.m. today, there were 242 gainers, 720 losers, and 363 counters traded unchanged. Also, the FBMK LCI was down 24.36 points as we broke for lunch earlier today. Now, turnover was at 2.087 billion shares. That's valued at 1.783 billion ringgit. Now, a quick update on gold prices. The physical price of gold, as at 9:30 a.m. Stands at 257.72 ringgit per gram. In the meantime, food manufacturers are currently seeing a shortage of sunflower oil due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, Ukraine and Russia account for nearly 73% of the export trade in sunflower oil. And in international business, an OPEC Secretary General says that the organization has no control, I repeat, no control over the events leading to the run-up in global oil prices. This is due to the break in the supply chain from Russia. Now, Brent crude surged yesterday, touching a 14-year high of over $139 a barrel. And that's some news briefs for you within the business sector. And I'd like to move on to our feature today. She joined us a couple of weeks ago. We're joined once again by HEIDY QUAH in conjunction with IWD. HEIDY, thank you very much for doing this for us. Again, I know you're a very, very busy woman doing a lot of things, but you're doing great work out there. And collectively, we can all talk about this year's team. Everyone's talking about it. Also, when I went on social media, a lot of conversations there, but these are just conversations. Work on the ground needs to be done, and you're out there doing this. So hashtag break the bias. How would you explain this? What does what does IWD mean to you, HEIDY?
Yeah. Gerard, thank you so much for having me and for so graciously inviting me on once again. I'm incredibly honored and thankful for this opportunity. When I think about breaking the bias, I think about, just changing our narrative and the way that we have conversations around what women can and cannot do. A lot of times we stereotype roles and careers and opportunities based on genders, right? And when I think about breaking the bias, it's really looking into not just equality, but equity for women, giving them the opportunities to push them, propel them forward to explore equal opportunities, opportunities that will look at equal outcomes, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Like for you, you've been working with refugee communities for such a long time. Now, I want to take stock of this today because of the work you've done. what has it been like for you? What has that journey been like for you? You know, are you seen so many things on a daily basis? You firefight 10 things at a time. What's
Yeah.
that journey been like for you?
Honestly, it's been one of the toughest journeys. Only because I think so much of it is also because I'm female, right? And the work is complex. A lot of times, it's not just looking into case management. It is dealing with human trafficking syndicates also, and so danger is a huge element. So mix that with the age, and just try to push forward policies in an industry that's so dominated by men. I think that has been really tough. But on the flip side, working on the ground, it's been really eye opening. I mean, for me, my biggest highlight the past week has just been realizing how incredibly strong women are. I mean, I get so many opportunities to do IWD stuff, right? And a lot of times we see the same people. I mean, we're thankful, but featured over and over again. When I think about strength these days, I draw so much of my strength watching how the women from the refugee and migrant community push forward to support their communities and their families.
Very, very interesting indeed. But with all the work that's being done for women in refugee and migrant communities, I guess there's a lot of impact and improvement. There are a lot of people going out there doing work. What are the impacts and the improvements are you seeing on the ground with the work being done, not only by you but by the others who are also chipping in with their various NGOs, associations, foundations? What do you see happening?
Yep. Today, more than ever, actually, we've seen a huge uh, group or huge number of women from refugee and migrant communities taking forward to take lead. I think that has, it's never been before, right? Because they're always pushed to the back of the line. They're not given a voice, they're not given opportunities. But over the past 2 years, especially, we've seen women leaders rise up, take charge, and learn to be their own advocates. One of the most exciting, I mean, let me just share with you a bit more about this migrant woman that I've been working with in this kampong that's been hit really badly by the floods. She's all of just 22 years old, but yet she leads an entire kampong of 200 families, rallying aid, providing support, looking for job opportunities for them. I mean, at 22, I don't really know. I mean, I was still with the organization, don't really know what I was doing. But when I look at, women in leadership, I think, I'm so glad that we are where we are today. Learning to just challenge the norms out there. There's so many more older folks and older men in the kampong, but seeing them kind of entrust the women with roles has been really refreshing to see. And I look forward to see so many more women from marginalized and disenfranchised community be given opportunities to lead and take charge to transform their communities.
Right, going back to this 22-year-old that's doing a fantastic job or great work as we speak, when you see her do what she does, what drives her? What lesson can we learn from her today on International Women's Day? A lot of us are desperate. A lot of women now are struggling. I know of so many friends who've dropped out the corporate world. They're doing e-hailing. They're doing anything and everything to keep their families going. Where does this woman draw strength from, and what can you tell us about drawing strength from ourselves to get through this really, 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 and when I say uncertain, it flooded in KL yesterday. It is an uncertain time. Everyone's lives just from here, it goes down here within the blink of an eye. How can one draw strength from within to move forward?
When I talk to this lady, her name is Fadila, she constantly reminds me, I mean, she tells me that she draws strength just from thinking about the future of her children and her family, and what's out there for them, just the desire to break that cycle of poverty and that cycle of struggle. And I think that's where she draws her strength from. She draws, the women folk in the community are amazing. I mean, just 2 days ago, this mother, she gave birth at home on her own. She's all of 25 years old. So I think seeing women come together and supporting one another and having their husbands be equally as supportive of women taking lead, I think that's where she draws strength and inspiration from. And just thinking about the future of her children, of course.
Right. We've got about 30 seconds left. Sorry that we're running out of time. And I know you have to get back to a meeting. Your message to everyone in Malaysia in conjunction with IWD. Heidi, we all look up to you.
I think I would just really challenge women out there to stop seeing yourself as less than men. I think a lot of times, when we think like, oh, I'm female, so I can't do this, it puts yourself at a disadvantage right away, right? So when you learn to see yourself as an equal, when you fight to put yourself out there, I think that is something that's incredibly important to do. If you don't have a seat at the table, like grab your own chair, make space, be loud, be bold. A lot of times we shy away from being overly female, overly sensitive, or overly we feel that these are weaknesses, but you know what, it's a strength. Rely on the strength of as a woman, and learn to see yourself as an equal, because you are amazing.
And you are amazing. Thank you very much. And say hello to Fadila for us. We hope
Yeah,
to have her on TV one of these days, right?
definitely, that'll be amazing. Thank you so much, Gerard.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care and keep doing the great job or the great work you're doing for our nation. Thank you so much, Heidi QUAH. On behalf of all of us here at Bernama, we'd like to thank Heidi QUAH for joining us, taking time. She's so busy right now, but she still found 10 minutes to join us from a rural part of Malaysia as she continues to do her work. Happy International Women's Day, one and all. In the meantime, let's move on to some international news. As the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues, aid supplies are being prepared along with an emergency medical team to set up a field hospital in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Now, WHO received 2 generator power to power health facilities with electricity issues, along with preparing other supplies at a warehouse on the outskirts. Meanwhile, a field hospital with an emergency medical team has been set up to ease the pressure of the current health services. And that is some of the news coming out of Ukraine. I'm going to carry on reading from the script here, so I won't be looking at the cam at this point. We'll take a look at what's happening with North Korea. Now, the US and 10 other countries bemoan the UN Security Council's failure to convict North Korea or their continuous missile launches, criticizing the Council's credibility in handling the issue. According to the U.S. ambassador to UN, North Korea carried out 11 missile tests this year, violating multiple UN Security Council resolutions, while the Council continues to remain silent. Now, the statement was also echoed by these countries: Albania, Australia, Brazil, France, Ireland, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, the Republic of Korea, and Britain. So that's some news coming out as to how countries are not very happy with the North Koreans at this point. From there, let's take a look at other developments. Yesterday's talks between Ukraine and Russia yielded apparently no positive outcomes, as a Russian negotiator warns that there won't be any conclusive results in the nearest future. He blames Ukraine's ground forces for ignoring orders that apparently left Russia no choice but to shell the humanitarian corridors through which refugees were meant to escape. He added that Russia expects another round of talks in the very near future. Now, from there, let's take a look at this other crisis, or something we faced some time ago. This is a new development. Dutch judges set for the defense hearing of MH17 murder trial, stressing the case should continue despite Russia's invasion on Ukraine. 3 Russians and a Ukrainian are standing trial for shooting down MH17. I'm sure you remember this back in 2014, killing all 298 people at that point. So that's some news with regards to what's happening with the MH17 case. Now, in the meantime, let's move on to IWD, or International Women's Day. Bolivian feminist groups took to the streets of La Paz demanding speedy resolution for victims of gender-based violence, while holding up posters of alleged perpetrators of femicide and rape. Bolivia has one of South America's highest rates of women killed due to their gender, with more than 46,000 reports of gender violence. Out of this, 37,000 are domestic violence cases. Now, from there, we move on to soccer. So with all the problems you see in Ukraine and Russia, this has also affected every other industry, more so sports. And in soccer, there have been a problem with transfer windows. Now, FIFA is opening a special transfer window for foreign players stranded in Russia due to the invasion of Ukraine. Who would have thought? This is in order to facilitate the departure of foreign players and coaches from Russia in the event the clubs affiliated to the Football Union of Russia do not reach a mutual agreement with their respective foreign players and coaches by the 10th of March. So that's a new development with regards to sports and what's happening within Russia and Ukraine at this point. Now we move on to Twitter. Lots happening on Twitter and trending on Twitter. I don't know if you remember, but 8 years ago today, we lost a plane. It was MH370, and today marks the 8th year since the tragic disappearance of MH370. Like you, I'm still waiting for an answer. In the meantime, following the downpour within the city limits yesterday or in the federal capital, the smart tunnel has been a hot topic of discussion with the issue of flooding around the Klang area. I guess a lot of people are asking how the smart tunnel works. Is it working? And we hope to get someone with regards to the smart tunnel or who has more news and information with regards to what happens and how the tunnel works. We really want to find that out very, very soon, and we hope to do that for you right here on The Brief. Now, in conjunction with International Women's Day, sorry about that, I'm losing my voice as I speak. Today, we remind ourselves, or let's remind ourselves of the real significance of this day. And I'm reading out a message from a friend of mine. Beyond the marketing campaigns and the celebration, all the women striving to raise their families while thriving in their workplace, we need to look at these conversations and talk about them and celebrate these conversations. Now, this message is none other than one of my interns, Nafisah Maiyukh, who's joined the English desk not so long ago, and she wants for us to celebrate the women striving to raise their families while thriving in their workplace. Thank you very much, Nafisah Maiyukh, for that. With that, I'm Gerard Ratnam with The Brief for you on a Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Thank you very much for staying with us this week. However, I'd like to say here that we will be broadcasting via StreamYard, and we'll be doing it from the office. And also, just to keep you in the know, the Prime Minister or the Honorable Prime Minister will be having a special press conference at 5:30 today. That's all from us here at the English desk with The Brief on a Tuesday afternoon. Have a great day. Thank you.